Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, the 13 popular procurement trends in 2023 and beyond. I'm your host, Sam Jenks, and I wanted to just say hello so you can put a face to today's content. And now I'm going to turn off my camera so we can focus on the day's content as well. In a little bit of an introductory phase, my name, like I said, is Sam Jenks. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Kodiak Hub, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Joined in addition by my colleague, Richard Teuchler, who has been instrumental in building today's content. So thank you for that, Richard. And he will also be aiding me in the background to answer your questions, but also to issue some very important polls. So make sure to keep your voting fingers ready during the session. Lastly, we'll be joined, as I often am, by my third co-host, my trusty companion, Charlie, the office dog. So if you hear a bark in the background, it's Charlie either adding his point of view to today's content, the mail coming through the slot, or he's just trying to ruin the session. He can be rather opinionated, so keep your ears peeled. Short about Kodiak Hub, for those of you who don't know about us, Kodiak Hub is a best-of-breed cloud-based supplier relationship management solution that is helping procurement and sourcing professionals just like you to build smarter and more sustainable supplier relationships with deeper sourcing insights in the form of robust ratings and analytics. Our solution provides an ecosystem and a modular suite that our users can be able to plug and play to manage supplier information, risk, compliance, performance, and collaboration all from one place. During the course of today's webinar, we'll primarily focus on the trends, but we'll also hopefully be able to provide some understanding as to how Kodiak Hub's solution could help you and your team to be able to really shine in 2023 and beyond. With that said, on to the agenda for today's webinar. During the next 40 to 45 minutes, which is the run time for today's session, I will try to thoroughly cover the following points, starting with the introduction, which we're in the midst of. Next, reflecting on 2022, going into the current state of procurement, which we see as one which is leveling up. Then the meat and potatoes for today's session, of course, the 13 procurement trends in 2023 and beyond, followed by a Q&A. Without any further ado, let's get into the day's content. 2022, it was a heck of a year. In a nutshell, Wordle made us all realize just how much we love brain games. Elon Musk purchased and quickly sunk the evaluation of Twitter. AI solutions like DALL-E and ChatGPT have marketeers like myself and Richard scared for our lives. And all the while, everyone's just trying to keep Will Smith's wife's name out of their mouths. Before we hurtle into the trends, challenges, and opportunities that await procurement in 2023, let's briefly visit how procurement looked in 2022 in order to better understand the current state and the future playing conditions. And it's been a wild one with some twists and turns that I don't think anyone could have really expected. 2022 was definitely circled in our calendars, at least in mine, to be a year of redemption, a return to reality, right? Some type of year of peace and peace of mind. Unfortunately, 2022 didn't give us that much time to lick our wounds. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has had some far-reaching consequences for both the personal and professional lives of billions globally, which has really challenged the status of the economic global status during the last year. And this will make 2023 a year that is challenging for businesses. Concentrated efforts by procurement teams will be necessary in order to be able to combat the challenges in the macro trends that are happening. Cost, collaboration, and change management will be key in the coming years as plenty of businesses shift back into what we see as kind of a survival mode. As Kodiak Hub's team has predicted back in 2022, this organizational dependence on the procurement function is placing procurement in focus. It's placing procurement in a place where it's well-deserved, getting a lot of attention in the value chain. It's a new beginning and a fresh start for the procurement function. 2023 is the year where procurement teams will ultimately need to level up. In the 2023 CPO Compass survey by procurement leaders, it was found that 85% of respondents to their survey plan to leverage data to drive efficiency gains in 2023. And 60% of respondents reported that they have brought in specialists from outside the traditional procurement roles to provide the skill range necessary to enable efficiencies and leverage data and digital tooling. According to this survey, procurement leaders have big plans to level up in regards to the real pillars of excellence, which is people, processes, and technology. It's been pretty interesting because everybody's been talking during the past 18 months about this mega trend, the Great Resignation, when I really believe that everyone should be talking about the trend that I see, which is the great upskilling. As procurement teams continue to build out support specialists and also enablement functions, this will also lead to new efficiencies in processes, increased agile procurement operations, greater knowledge and education opportunities for knowledge sharing in the teams, and ultimately bring us more balanced procurement teams of the future. As we typically say at Kodiak Hub during these trend spotting activities, if you want to spot the trends, then first identify the challenges that are out there. Therein lies the opportunity. With no further ado, let's buckle our seatbelts, check our rearview mirrors, test our turn signals. We're ready to race off into the new year. Here are the 13 popular procurement trends of 2023 and beyond, starting with number 1, a trend we like to call from blue suits to blue jeans. I'm fed up with this. People call procurement boring or mundane, corporate, risk averse, penny pinching, transactional, humdrum. I'm sure that you're tired of hearing it as well. It's an industry that's seen as a lot of navy suits and white men. While this may be true of the past, I think the future may look slightly different. If you've never attended DPW's event in Amsterdam, I urge you to do so coming up in the fall of 2023. There's plenty of great events that are out there, but DPW is doing something pretty special. They have awesome speakers, awesome procure tech vendors, great conversations with great procurement leaders. And let's be honest, the parties don't hurt very much either. But something was also different during the 2022 conference, which I attended with my team at Kodiak Hub, that took place back in late September. You could feel a shift in the room. In my opinion, it all kind of started, for me at least, with an email that I got about 2 days before the event. It read, dress code, startup casual, a new dress code for a new generation. Smart casual is a bit less dressy than traditional business casual and a bit more comfortable. Pretty much they wanted people to have a little bit more of a youthful and energetic vibe. They wanted to see jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, less corporate, more casual, things that people would have at the office, right? This made me realize procurement is in transition from blue suits to blue jeans, from cost saver to value creator. We're in a new time of procurement. It's a new generation, an increasingly diverse and equitable generation. Here's a fun fact for everybody. Those millennials who have been scoffed at for their lack of work ethic for years, and now, their overconfidence of their technical skills. Those millennials are now in the age group of 27 to 42. Take a second for that to sink in. These are your team's line managers, soon your directors, soon your VPs. So yeah, procurement pros wear blue jeans too, and will continue to do so in 2023 and beyond. And it doesn't make them any less competent than the generation before for it. Moving into trend number 2, Chief Value Officer. The role of CPO has evolved considerably in the recent years. In 2023, more companies will redefine the way that they work completely. A CPO should no longer be seen as purely an operational function, but as a key strategic role player. It is one of the most critical roles in shaping the way an organization does business, especially during challenging times, those like we are experiencing right now. The CPO at Heineken, Hervé Lefau, and I'm horribly butchering that name, I'm sure, He came up with kind of this concept, describing the role of today's CPO as more akin to a chief value officer, one who goes about business of creating value through shrewd business partnering, digital and technological innovation and sustainability, future-proofing the business model. The fact is that good teams require great leaders, and it will be the role of the CPO to elevate the procurement function and make value the primary focus during 2023 and the years beyond. Which leads quite nicely into trend number 3, finding procurement's brand. This is a topic that I've written about a few times, but I'm very passionate about as well. And I think that it's important that procurement starts to find their brand by asking themselves, what is your procurement team's why? Business requirements in 2023 are shifting, right? We've already pointed out this, that procurement is being put in a serious position to be taken really seriously as a serious role player in the broader value chain. To convince others that your procurement team is a key role player in the broader value chain, though, you're going to need to not just have the support of the business as a transactional function, right, as a support function, but begin to inspire with the purpose and vision that resonates with the business. A good way to inspire is to ensure that your team begins to focus on building your procurement team's brand. As Simon Sinek, marketing expert and branding guru, said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. You've probably seen Simon Sinek's golden circle, where why is at the center, what and how being the rings around it, right? So why exactly does your procurement team exist? Well, responsible and sustainable trade is really essential to development in organizations globally and also value creation globally. Cost reduction is paramount to stay profitable and competitive during tough economic circumstances. Change, innovation, and collaboration, which is driven by external partnerships, in the majority, your suppliers, is paramount to succeed and maintain competitive edge in fast-moving markets. Procurement, your function, is the common denominator in this equation. The power of procurement is immense. The business and the customer have it really good, and that's your doing, right? If you look at it, the availability of goods and services that has built this kind of illusion that a global supply chain is simple. We've grown accustomed to the small luxuries of normal life, both as customers but also as consumers, right? Without really recognizing it at all. We may have become less appreciative of also what we have, with that being said. This illusion of accessibility and simplicity is really a mark of procurement, sourcing, quality, and supply chain professionals doing their job in an orchestrated and knowledgeable manner, where you guys are navigating our very complex supply chain network so that, we can enjoy cashew milk from California and sardines from Spain without having to leave our own zip code. Building your brand internally and selling in the value procurement and sourcing will be crucial in the coming years to ensure that procurement builds its influence in the organization. Some brands that I can urge everyone in attendance to look towards are brands like IBM, BT Sourced, and Nestle, who have taken this journey in their organizations and really created a brand for their procurement teams. Leading into trend number 4, a good way maybe for your procurement organization to get some more recognition is really to build the table. This trend is definitely inspired by an awesome conversation that we had ourselves with David Lattin, who is the head of global indirect procurement and supplier diversity and equality at Logitech. He's a customer of Kodiak Hub, but also was a recent guest on the episode of Kodiak Hub's podcast, The Way We Source. He said in the episode something that was awesome, I thought at least, that there's this kind of slightly neurotic idea that's everybody's wondering, how can we get the attention of the CEO and show them that procurement is doing all this really great stuff? How do we make the business notice what we're doing? David suggests not to just ask, how do I get a seat at the table Instead, ask yourself, what is the table that my company needs from me? And then go out there and do your best job at building it. And if you do a good job at that, leadership will likely sit in. But what this requires you as a procurement leader to do is to really ask yourself, what is important to the business? What is important to the strategy at this business? What are our core values? If you really ask yourself that question and how procurement can really push forward those important topics, you're essentially building your own new strategic impact. And as David said in the episode, he promises this is what will find you with the CEO sitting at your table rather than vice versa. David and his team has seen great success taking on this approach, focusing on a really business critical strategy, which was and still is today diversity and inclusion, choosing to put supply chain equality and diversity and inclusive external spend atop their agenda. The fact is that change, of course, can be driven by various factors. Sometimes it's movers internally, sometimes it's the market, right? But as we also know, sometimes those factors are beyond our control. Leading into trend number 5, legislation. Supply chain tier mapping was one of our top trends that we spotted back at Kodiak Hub in 2022. And we believe that will also persist, which we'll circle back around to later. But one of the primary factors, of course, that led to increased needs for supply chain visibility and still is leading to that wave of reporting is legislation that's been passed primarily within the last 24 to 36 months. Some examples of this, the enactment of the Transparency Act, the German Supply Chain Act, and the most possibly encompassing is the proposed EU Due Diligence Act, which is looming corporate sustainability and supply chain due diligence legislation, which is really making due diligence in the supply chain not really a nice to have anymore, but something that you can expect to need to have in place during the coming years. The most recent EU legislation proposal is, again, possibly the most encompassing, the most robust of them all. And this will probably be the one that will affect you. So you might be thinking to yourself, why is it important in my business and will it affect my business? And simply put, probably so. The proposed EU due diligence directive makes a little bit of a distinction and has identified 2 groups. Group 1 is EU incorporated limited liability companies that have at least 500 employees and a net turnover of 150 million euro worldwide. Group 2 being other small limited liability companies operating in resource intensive industries with over 250 employees and a net turnover of 40 million euro worldwide. As the current proposal stands, Group 1 will be under effect of the law by 2025, whereas Group 2 will be under effect by 2027. So for Group 1, only 2 years left, and Group 2, 3 to 4 years left, depending upon the proposal and when it actually gets, of course, passed. Leading us into our first poll for today. Which group, we're curious, does your business fall under? Are you a part of Group 1, which is then a business with over at least 500 employees, turnover 150 million worldwide, or Group 2, 250 employees, and a net worldwide turnover of 40 million? Just curious to understand. So please answer on the poll now. Take a moment and answer on the poll. So it seems as if the majority of those in attendance today are in Group 1, which also then makes me assume that some of you guys are probably already running into some of the legislation that's happening with the German Supply Chain Act, as well as then also with the Transparency Act and more. For those of you that are smaller companies, or maybe don't have your HQ in the EU, you might be thinking, well, this isn't about me. Well, don't close down the webinar too quickly. You will also have to pay attention, even if you're not headquartered in the EU. In a non-EU country, if you simply operate in the EU and generate a turnover similar to that of Groups 1 and Groups 2, then you may also be affected by the EU due diligence law. If you operate a small, medium-sized enterprise, an SME, then you will not be affected by this new proposal directly. However, this new law is part of a trend that is things to come. So therefore, it's also important for smaller businesses to keep an eye on the evolution of environmental and human rights requirements, even if you operate in an SME. As we talk about often at Kodiak Hub, there are some great ways to be able to combat these increased legislative requirements and enhance corporate responsibility, corporate sustainability, supply chain due diligence, and also to enhance supplier engagement. Because ultimately, you're dependent on a tight line of communication and engagement from your supply chain to meet these pending regulatory requirements. For this, we talk about the 4 R's to ensure that you will be able to enhance your supplier engagement and actually get back responses for suppliers that are necessary for due diligence requirements. And it's important to build a sense close of partnership and provide your partners with a engaging experience. We believe that these 4 R's, being rationale, to ensure that your due diligence activities are in fact, relevant, have some rationale behind them, that there's relevancy within those activities that you're doing, that they're relevant to the supplier categories or geographies or type of suppliers that you're interacting with, that you are giving them a means to respond back, and that you are also responsive within that activity, and also that you're giving them a recognition when they're doing a good job. This leads very nicely into trend number 6 on the list, which is SRM. We believe at Kodiak Hub that SRM is at the heart of your procurement process, and we might be slightly biased within this question, as we are a provider of SRM technology, but you just don't have to take it from me. In a state of flux study where 424 respondents responded back, 60% of those respondents said that joint activities with suppliers were the best mitigating actions to counter supply chain disruptions during the last year. In the same 2023 PwC survey that we referenced previously and we'll reference more later, SRM was polled as the second most important strategic priority of procurement departments, only being beat out by cost reduction. It's obvious that SRM programs and solutions offer great opportunities to manage supply chain risk, to enhance corporate sustainability and supply chain due diligence, all the while driving supply chain collaboration as well as your supplier performance. To display the value of SRM, we'd like to just quickly switch over screens to show some of the capabilities of what it would be like adopting an SRM solution such as Kodiak Hub. And we will do so very briefly, just a quick little 3-minute intro of the solution. The solution itself is focused on feeding our customers with insights where you can be able to dig into information about your suppliers or your products and services. Driving impact in the relationship where you can be able to manage onboarding activities or assessments, audits, performance evaluations, or corrective actions / different collaboration in the collaboration portal. And then you can get broader intelligence, of course, in the intelligence space. The platform itself is really focused on getting you guys into the 21st century when it comes to supplier management, helping you to have the means to quickly segment and find those suppliers that are doing well and those that are doing poorly, giving you a really malleable solution to get business done quickly. The supplier scorecards are some of the things that we find to be some of the most robust and also a great visualization of how supplier management is important to you. Here you could be able to see also the different insights that you could be able to build about your supplier, better diving down into, for example, different types of insights about this supplier's risk profile or their performance profile, all within a 360-degree view of the supplier scorecard, helping you to manage your supplier information, whether it's contact details or segmentations associated with your supplier, Simple things like note taking or third-party insights, such as, for example, credit scores, media monitoring, as well as then different types of sanctions and blacklist capabilities. You can be able to dive deeper, of course, into previous assessments, audits, and valuations here. You have any ongoing or previous activities, collaborations with your suppliers here, which you can find very quickly based upon the type of those actions or the different statuses that you have. What you can also be able to do here is find any type of documentation, of course, those things that have been shared with you by suppliers in templates, whether those are, for example, certifications, so you can be able to stay on top of who it is that's providing you with certs and when it is that they're uploading them, as well as then making sure you're not missing certifications or the expiry of, for example, contracts as well. Documents can be managed here, communication can be managed here, data can be managed here, and of course you can build deeper insights about your supplier in a 360-degree manner, ultimately so you guys can be able to see value progression over time, ensuring that you're going to be able to address the KPIs that are most important to you, but also to be able to see trends if your suppliers are getting better or are they getting worse in the different areas that are most important to you as well. There's a lot more functionality that I could be able to show off, but that's not the reason why we're here today. We're here, of course, to be able to dig deeper into the trends, but that will let me then stop for a moment and poll very quickly, because I would love to introduce the solution deeper to anyone that is interested in doing so, but I don't want to bore those that are not. So I want to stop for a poll here and ask everybody, if you would like a deeper demo of the solution, then please answer yes, please, on the poll that we have now. If you would not like one, then you don't have to answer, or please just click in not right now. That's perfectly fine. And then we will know that you are not currently interested in getting a demonstration at this time. Please make sure to just answer the poll really quickly, and then we'll get back into the last leg of the trends. Sharing my screen here again and revealing very obviously here trend number 7, which is equally as important when you are managing a global supplier base. That's mapping your supplier base's tiers. Ensuring that you have better visibility is incredibly important in challenging times such as now. This was a trend that also made our trend list back in 2022. But it persists as well in 2023. A McKinsey & Company survey showed that actually in 2022, 39% of companies reported that they have visibility of their tier 2 suppliers. And while that's not the majority, it's a lot better compared to the year before. And for tier 3, there was a massive increase as well, which went from 2% reporting visibility to 11% reporting visibility. Everyone is focusing in on supply chain transparency and visibility, really because everyone is searching for that golden goose, the buzzword that you've heard a million times now during the last few years, especially during times of COVID, resilience. Ultimately, as a supply chain, the complexity continues to grow. So do the tiers of the supply networks, increasing the complexity of transparency, visibility beyond tier 1. This, you guys know, you're living with it, right? True resilience requires closeness to the pulse of your supply chain to understand its real intricacies, but equally to be able to identify areas where you guys have dependencies. Tier mapping can really aid risk management, dependency and vulnerability identification, but it can equally provide a clear understanding where there are opportunities in your supply chain, opportunities such as consolidation, such as tail end reduction, but also opportunities for alternate supply. It's important to never forget as well, though, that supply chain tier mapping is really only as strong as your tier 1 supplier relationships, again, highlighting why SRM should be at the core of your risk management and strategic sourcing initiatives. Moving into trend number 8, Industry 4.0 and interconnectivity. Industry 4.0 and interconnectivity will continue to reach new heights, unlocking new opportunities and really enhancing customer experiences in the age of the 4th industrial revolution. This era has introduced some impactful new technologies, including IoT, RPA, cloud computing, AI, and much more, which will just continue to shape the capacity for businesses to drive efficiencies at scale. As put very well by Forbes, bringing Industry 4.0 to procurement is part of a larger goal for many organizations, which is centering procurement as a value creation center and a strategic leader. AI, process automation, and integrated data sphere provide the foundation for enhanced capabilities of Industry 4.0 technology. Leveraging technology of the fourth industrial revolution in tandem to each other, for example, Internet of Things together with cloud computing to be able to have real-time tracking, for example, on shipments and alike, or quality of shipments. This is just strengthening procurement's ability to deliver value and savings to the business. But as always, to leverage your technology, you need the correct culture, but you also need some cash to back things up, which leads very nicely into trend number 9, investments in digital and digital culture. Finally, it seems as if procurement teams are getting the budget that they require. Ultimately, globally, it's a trend at the moment that digital transformation spend is expected to hit 6.8 trillion US dollars in 2023. This was a data grab from International Data Corporation. Digital transformation is often seen to be focused more so on back office tasks, improving customer engagement as well. However, this shift in 2023 will be towards supply chains and operational processes, capabilities to create efficiencies, and also to combat the current economic circumstances. In the 4th edition of the PwC Digital Procurement Survey, which was also referenced earlier, was found something that was quite interesting, I thought. 82% of companies that surveyed who had a high level of process digitalization say that they create true value from leveraging their procurement data. At the same time, 55% of all respondents to the survey, so not just the high performers, but all respondents, said that they struggle to make the most of their data, showing a lack of process digitalization, which makes it difficult for them to utilize data for decision making. I'm curious, with this in mind, understanding that leveraging technology is important for the future and that spend will increase, will you be investing in digital solutions this year? Have you secured the budget necessary to be able to invest in digital solutions during 2023? Go ahead and answer on the poll here now. If you have a moment to be able to do so, would be great. As we're in a time of a recession as well, people are holding tighter in their purses. So we're curious, have you secured the budget necessary, and will you be investing in digital solutions? Seems as if there's a blend. Most will, but it's about the majority of people are on the fence here with the poll at the moment, if they will or will not be investing this year, which isn't so strange amidst a time where it's a possible recession. But hopefully you and your team will be able to convince for that budget that you need to be able to drive efficiencies in your business. With that being said, we've said it a million times before, right? Even as a technology provider ourselves, technology is the vehicle, but people, you still sit within the driver's seat. So investment in digital will definitely persist, but you can definitely bet on investment in digital competency to also be on the rise, right? They have to go hand in hand. The culture needs to match the technology. Upskilling and building of digital cultures will be really crucial as digital investments increase in procurement globally. to ensure that you and your teams are actually successfully implementing and adopting the solutions that you're bringing on board, of course. This segues nicely into trend number 10, which is in fact that the age of the specialist is upon us. Procurement is currently in a bit of a transitional phase, right? Organizationally, we're entering, as we see it, into the age of the specialist. This is particularly true in procurement functions focused on digital, risk management, and sustainability, as well as other aspects like automation and processes and more. 2023 will continue to bring us organizational remodels in procurement teams where networks of specialists and supporting roles will work parallel, directing traditional procurement staff, which will be driven also by broader insights and initiatives. Some interesting statistics here from the CPO Compass surveys by procurement leaders. One found on the left-hand side from 2022 and the other from 2023 on the right. It was found back in 2022 that nearly half of the respondents planned on creating new roles and responsibilities, including specialist roles, as you see here on screen, some of the specialists and enablement roles to be created. Whereas this year, 60% of respondents said that they have already brought in or plan to bring in specialists from outside traditional procurement roles to improve the function's impact. So although the challenges facing procurement are considerable, functions that boast a diverse skill set, leveraging a range of data and automation tasks and capabilities, that they will be able to manage the right tasks and they'll be in a better place to deliver. So look for this to continue to be a trend and look at your opportunities to bring in specialists and enablement functions as well to really help your team within procurement excellence. Just like procurement competencies, how they'll be diversifying and becoming more specialized for trend number 10. Moving into trend number 11, we believe that your tech stack can expect to get a bit diversified and a bit specialized as well, as we think that things are moving towards a best of all ecosystem. Best of breed is really no longer a gamble. It's becoming the norm, really. The 2020 CPO survey found that 59% of procurement functions are targeting the best of breed approach to technology adoption in 2022. And this trend is planned to continue into 2023 and beyond. As suggested in the Procure Tech 100 yearbook sponsored by IBM, there is an assumption that best of all solution ecosystems will start to emerge during the coming years. Best of breed solutions allow you and your team, of course, to imagine and illustrate your perfect Procure Tech ecosystem, your utopia. Looking at this illustration of the procurement technology and process map, it's apparent that there are a number of areas to fill here, right? Some areas serve a special purpose in the broader source-to-pay landscape, whilst others drive value creation during the entire life cycle of the procurement process. If one were to take a crack at creating a best-of-breed landscape, it could look something like this, filling the respective areas of the process with solutions that fulfill specialized functionality. Imagining your best-of-breed landscape, your ecosystem will require discovery of not just what its solutions, of course, are best of breed, but what are best fit for you. Your procurement teams are really living, breathing organisms, and they should be treated as such, right? You have your own dynamic user journeys and needs. This will result also in more micro platforms, which will provide a more nimble means to streamline processes, but also to make decisions a whole lot faster. As put very well, in my opinion, by Tim Perry-Ogden of Jaguar, pulled out of the Procure Tech 100 yearbook. He said that there is no one-stop shop to cover risk management end-to-end. We will likely require, an ecosystem within an ecosystem. The market is moving away from one solution does it all ecosystem suites with central management and focused solutions for specialist areas. Moving along into trend number 12, because if you're going to keep getting digital, then you need to make sure that you are, of course, addressing those cybersecurity risks that will continue to come up in your business. Cybersecurity is a risk that cannot be underestimated. There was a report, in fact, by Reinsurer, SCOR, which was recently published. It was published back in 2022. It's a statistic from 2021 that found that cyber attacks on supply chains went up by almost 430% in 2021. Meanwhile, in a PwC survey earlier back in 2022, 60% of businesses admitted that they don't have full visibility of cybersecurity risks that exist within their supply chains. Perhaps the most telling here is admit, right? And even the other 40% of the respondents to this particular question also just said that they had only self-declaration in a survey to rely upon. Clearly, this is a situation that is really something that's going to need to be addressed, and millions of businesses, I think, are going to buckle their seatbelts and take this head on to be able to address cybersecurity risks during 2023. Moving into the last trend and keeping time quite nicely here, supply chain accountability. This trend comes directly from our CEO and founder of Kodiak Hub, so it is last, but it's definitely not least. Malin Schmidt had this trend, which was also voted amongst the top 10 predictions from the ProcureTech 100 founders during a recent webinar that was hosted by ProcureTech with Lance Younger, Dr. Eloise Epstein, and many others. And the essence of this is really that supply chains are becoming more transparent and data-driven, right? Suppliers and procurement teams will begin to be held to new standards. They're already being held to new standards with an additional layer of accountability into the procurement function and supply chain management. Procurement and sourcing professionals need to embrace the fact that you now hold the currency when it comes to impact and responsibility within the supply chain. Your customers and your consumers are demanding you to be accountable for your supply chain. You will be held to a new standard in 2023 and beyond. And I'm sure that you're already feeling that pressure. So we'll help you, of course, to be able to navigate it by staying ahead of the trends. So there you have it, the trends of 2023. We can't, of course, guarantee that the trends will be applicable in all of your businesses, but we hope, of course, that you will be able to draw some inspiration, some insights from today's session. And I'm curious, before we move into the Q&A, which we will do very quickly, which trends will have the greatest impact on your business of those that were presented today? Which do you believe will have the greatest impact on your business? We're curious of the different trends there are. And as you see, we've left off number one, being the shift from blue suits to blue jeans. That was more a trend that is a fact, so to say. You know, procurement teams are getting younger. And we would be interested in knowing which trends do you believe will impact your business. Please take the time to pop in your response. We're very interested in understanding which do you believe will be the most impactful in your business in 2023. Go ahead and vote on screen now. Seems as if it's pretty much a dead tie between three elements, or at least the three elements that are the most apparent seem to be Chief Value Officer, which is no surprise, right? That teams will, of course, have to have new types of leaders that will lead them into the new era of procurement and also help them to build procurement's brand internally. Legislation will drive change, and also that supplier relationship management will be in focus. These are things that, of course, aren't so surprising by the trends that we've seen in the market as well. With that being said, we'd love to now make sure that we capture any questions that there are out there. If you would like a demo and you forgot to fill out the survey that happened earlier and say yes, then make sure to just scan this particular QR code and you'll be able to come directly to a demo booking link simply, where you can be able to book some time in our company's schedule. Otherwise, if you said yes, then a rep will, of course, be in touch with you, I'm sure, following the webinar to be able to get something in the schedule. But please, if you guys have any questions to be responded to, both about Kodiak Hub's solutions, but of course, about today's content, then please feel free to write those in the chat bubble now. And we are super happy to respond to them